Welcome, Helldivers, to our bootcamp, where we will start a guide on our glorious weapons, or as I like to call them, tools for spreading managed democracy. In this guide, we'll show you the stats, strengths, and weaknesses of each weapon and how they compare to each other, along with builds and loadout suggestions on how to make the most of every equipment. One thing to keep in mind is that the weapon balance is still very early in the life cycle of Helldivers 2, so there's still a lot of balancing and tweaking to be done with the huge arsenal we have at our disposal, and that is still getting constant updates. And since today is our first episode, we'll start with our most basic weapon, the standard issue assault rifle that everyone starts the game with, the AR-23 Liberator, or simply put, the Liberator. The Liberator is a standard classic automatic assault rifle. It deals 55 damage per shot, it can hold 45 shots per magazine, and you can carry up to 7 magazines. It has very little recoil and a fire rate of 640 rounds per minute. This means that you have a potential DPS of 687 and you can deal a total of 2475 damage per magazine. And as we will see in the future, this is not too bad. It's actually very good when compared to some other weapons. It also has a very fast reload time of just 1.25 seconds and 2.17 seconds when the magazine is completely empty. It feels like a long time in a heated fight, but it's actually very fast. If you pay attention to your magazine, you see that you don't really need to worry about reloading and losing half your magazine before a fight, but just because how fast this reload time is. The weapon also has a flashlight and different zoom levels. As of now, the flashlight isn't that useful unless you're playing on nighttime missions and the ambient is really dark, and even then isn't that much game changing. It also has 3 different zoom levels, for 25, 50, and 100 meters. It also has 3 firing modes, automatic, semi-automatic, and burst firing with a 3-round burst. This weapon is very easy to use. As you can see, it has very little recoil, so much so that I never felt the need to use its burst fire and semi-auto firing modes even when I was firing at a long range. Its fire rate is also very manageable, further increasing your ability to control the weapon. You can just aim at your enemy and fire away, only really needing to control your accuracy when you are very far away or trying to hit very precise shots. Like for example trying to headshot a Devastator. You can do it, and it isn't even that hard, but there are much better weapons to deal with this kind of situation. The Liberator starts to falter when encountering armored enemies. However, medium armored enemies like the Bot Devastator or the Bug Hive Guard do not have armor covering their entire bodies, so you can shoot them on their weak spots. You can shoot the arms and heads of Devastators and hit the joints and back of the Bug Hive Guard just fine. You don't need to penetrate the armor. It will require some extra effort, and sometimes you won't have the time to do it. You are going to be swarmed in every direction, getting shot from every angle, and you have to line up that shot. And you have to hit the enemy's back, you have to flank it, you have to aim properly, and you just won't have the time, you won't have the place, you won't get to do that. And that's when the Liberators start to see problems. Other than that, you can and will handle all small and medium-sized enemies just fine. The Liberator will do its job. It's a true workhorse that will take you from the lowest difficulty all the way up to the hardest, and you will not feel like you are weaker than your teammates or the enemies for that matter. It's a jack of all trades and master of none. Sure, we will find weapons that have better crowd control, can pierce through armor, deal better burst or sustain damage, or that are even more accurate. But very few of them can work in most situations just like the Liberator does. This is the weapon that we'll compare every other weapon to. It is most important that we talk about it first. One thing to take note of Helldivers 2 weapon balance is that the devs seem to want to give us a lot of options and many weapons that will feel like a side grade, as a different option to fill a particular niche instead of just giving you stronger weapons. In a way, like every game, it will have a meta. But their idea is to make everything as balanced as possible, and in a way it seems like the Liberator is the balancing point. Another thing to take notice is that your loadout isn't just your primary, you also have a secondary and a third weapon that takes a stratagem slot. So you can build your loadout either for a very specific job or try to complement the weaknesses of a weapon. Okay, so what are my recommendations for a loadout that complement the Liberator? Actually, it depends on what your team needs. What role are you trying to fill? Most of the time, what I run and most people will run some kind of... So pretty much the Liberator has no real weaknesses. So you can do pretty much anything as long as you complement your team needs. However, if you are playing solo, I strongly advise something to break heavy armor. Something like a rocket launcher or the railgun. However, if you are playing a team and you can see what your friends are bringing. However, if you are in a team and you can see what your friends are bringing, choose a loadout that will complement them. Anything can work with the Liberator. If you are trying to destroy objectives, the grenade launcher is a very good choice. If you just add clearing, a machine gun is a very reliable choice, or the flamethrower. Or if your team is actually dealing with a lot of heavy armor, consider just bringing a heavy armor equipment with you too. If you guys are going to destroy bug holes, try to bring a grenade launcher. If you're afraid... For the secondary, I like to use the Redeemer SMG, simply because it is by far the best secondary in the game right now. But we will look into that later, and why the Redeemer is so much better than the other choices right now. Like I said before, the weapon balance in Helldivers 2 is still very early on its life cycle, and the game is constantly being updated and rebalanced. It will be very complicated to follow through the devs' idea that they want most things to be side grades, extra options, instead of direct upgrades, instead of power creeping. That being said, let's spread democracy to the galaxy, Helldivers. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this kind of content, please click on like or subscribe or leave a comment down there for what the next weapon you'd like to see. We will keep doing this for every single weapon in Helldivers until we complete them all, and then we're going to go through the stratagems. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.